Hey, what's up, people? We've got a big one here today, and I don't mean just in terms of package size. This is the recently released Dreamebot X30 Ultra, and it just went up for sale starting on February 28th of 2024. And we're going to unbox it, and I may be crazy for doing this, but we're also going to take it apart. Now, I know that unboxings are not everybody's thing, so if you're just here for the teardown, I totally get it. I'll leave a time right here that you can jump to, and that's where, we'll try to get started looking inside of the thing. I'm also going to try to use the YouTube's chapters features thing because I've never used it before, but I think it's time to learn how to do so. Now, not only is this box kind of big, it also weighs quite a bit too. I clocked it in on my scale at about 38, just over 38 pounds or so. And I noticed like right immediately afterwards that there's a sticker up here at the top where it says it's got a gross weight of like 39.5 pounds. So it was fairly close. It is a pretty hefty box when it arrived. And we're not going to go into like all the details or anything like that of what this vacuum can do. If you're interested in learning more about it, I'd encourage you to like check out their website, and that'll give you like all the lists and, like little video clips and everything of like what it claims to do. However, we can quickly look at some of the stuff here that's on the box. Like, for example, the first one here, it says hands-free auto maintenance. So it's got this base station here where it can like fill up fluids. It can like empty out the dustbin and do all that sort of thing. And it goes along with the next line where it says like self-cleaning station. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's base station where all that stuff happens. It's got this Mop Extend Roboswing technology. Now that Roboswing, it's got nothing to do with like dancing robots or anything like that. What that means is that it's got these brushes, these little mop brushes that it can actually extend to like go underneath cabinets or furnitures or things like that, so that it can reach like a little bit further in and, clean a little bit more underneath whatever is stopping the main body from being able to like get that far into like, wherever it's cleaning. It claims a powerful Vormax suction of 8,300 pascals. I have no way of testing that, so we're just going to have to take it at its claim. This versatile carpet cleaning strategy. From what I've learned about it, you can actually have it so that it can go like on carpets and like lift up the mops if it's just mop. That way it doesn't like smear moistness or, like fluids or whatever on the carpet that it's vacuuming over. Or you can actually also have it so that it leaves the pads at the station before it goes and it vacuums up on carpet. And it can rewash the mops. It says X2, so I guess it can go and like do 2 mopping runs or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, like all the how many times it'll like do certain things. But I guess it can like at least mop like certain areas like twice or something. I've still got a lot to learn about it myself, in case you haven't noticed. Now on the side over here, it also says that it's got a 6400 milliamp battery, which it claims will give you a running time of about 260 minutes. It can also heat up the water to clean the mops, and that way also it kind of helps like eliminate like bacteria and stuff like that, or I guess at least minimize it. Now, one thing that's not mentioned anywhere on the box that I kind of would have liked to have had is what they call a tri-cut brush. And what that brush can do is that it's sucking up hair. It can actually cut it in the process so that it doesn't get like all wrapped around the brush or anything like that. I'm sure we've all seen like when we look at the bottom of a vacuum and we look at the brush there, it'll have like hairs like wrapped all around it. And you'd have to like go through it and like cut it off or like pull it off. Now, that's good for people with long hair, obviously, or like pets. And we don't have any dogs and cats. We do have one indoor Lago-based fluffy boy. And this rabbit, when he sheds, he drops so much hair that you could pretty much go through and collect it all and make like an entirely new rabbit like every few days. Now, I found out that you can buy these brushes online. I found some on Amazon. They're not Dreame branded. They're like some other off brands. But the time frame that it says for delivery makes me think that they come shipped from China. You can find them on AliExpress. They're cheaper. They're supposedly Dreame branded, although I'm not entirely sure. So I don't think it matters like if you order it from AliExpress or Amazon. It looks like it might still get shipped from China anyway, so you're going to be waiting around, maybe like a couple weeks or so for it. One thing that it does say on the Amazon website, though, is that this brush is unisex, so it'll cut anybody's hair. All right, so enough chit chat. Let's get into this thing. All right, so let's slice the tape up here. Now, the first thing I can see here, we've got a box here with a handle I'm guessing this is going to be the vacuum itself. I'm going to set that off to the side. We can see here we got the big old canister there. Got some box around here on the side. Seems like it's kind of stuck. Oh, it's because of these holes here on the side, these handle holes. I got to pull those out. Okay, I think that should release it. There we go. Nothing but protective box there, so I'm just going to drop that off to the side. And that there protects the actual base station. I think I maybe should have taken this upside down. Let's move this vacuum here out of the way. I'm going to just try to slide this out like this. All right, so there is the base station. Box of supplies, it looks like. It's got the manual in there, the brushes, or the mop heads, some other brush, cord. No clue. Oh, these are those little bristle brushes that go around. Okay, so this looks like it's part of the base station and another piece of cardboard. I'm just going to stand it up for now. So this is the little ramp that the vacuum kind of rides up on. And it has these, if I could get it out of here, it's got these little grooves. So I think what that's for is so that the wheels there have somewhere to positively grip so that they're not slipping as it's trying to back up into the base station. So kind of a little neat little thing there. We'll set that there, drop that off to the side. Let's see what other stuff comes in here. And yep, that's where the manual is. A little card here with some information. Kind of like some basic usage stuff, looks like. Bottle of cleaner. Multi-surface floor cleaner, it says. This brush. It's got a little blade here on the side. I'm guessing maybe that's to cut hair. Not entirely sure yet. I'm going to have to look all that stuff up. There was no preparation done for this thing ahead of time, people. And the two mop heads, and these have a little magnetic, it's a magnet. Yeah, those are magnets right there. So I guess it just magnetically couples them to the actual robot. I guess we'll have to see how it actually pulls it off of the robot. Oh, that's kind of neat. I did not know that. Power cord. So this is going to be for the base station. A vacuum bag, so that's where it empties out all the dust from the dustbin inside the vacuum. The little brush head here for kind of like a little sweeper head, and this is it's kind of rubbery so that it's really flexible. Just the actual hub there in the middle is solid plastic. And in this box, this is going to be the actual vacuum. So let's go ahead and open that. There it is right there. Not even properly bagged. Come on, man. What are we even doing here? Look at this. So, conveniently, got this little pocket here where we can stick our hands in and pull up on the vacuum. And holy crap, this thing is actually pretty heavy. Dang. It's a lot bigger than I expected, too. Here, let's move this box off to the side. I don't think there's much else in there. There it is. You guys remember this little thing? Look at the size difference on those. So, all right, so got a nice little layer of protective plastic there. If I can keep this on for the time being, I'm just going to leave it on. Got a little sticker here that covers up the camera. I'll probably just leave that on also just to protect all that. Got little pits right here. Not sure what that's all about. And then there's a little hole there. This little plastic piece there. Looks like it just stops the bumper there from being able to get pushed in. But that means there must have been another one of these. Oh yeah, it's right here in the box. So it just got those two little pieces there just to protect the bumper from moving around inside of the packaging. Oh, that is not covering up the camera. The camera is on the opposite side, right there. And it's got to tell you that it's got AI action. Everything's got AI nowadays, right? Got a couple of, or 3 buttons right here. One for power, one for home, and then another one for square. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a spot cleaning function. Got this little thing right here. That's for the Lidar. There's a rubber flap here on the side. I have a feeling that this is probably where the dust empties out from. And I just pushed it in. I'm trying to get it to come out. There we go, like that. So yeah, looks like that's where the dustbin gets emptied out from. And down here on the bottom, we got one kind of just freewheeling wheel right there. Got the 2 drive wheels right here. These are the two hubs for where the mop heads actually like mount into. This one here is the one that can do the swinging. We can see right there how there's kind of like a little bit of a cutout so that it can go like in and out. There's got some optical sensors down here on the bottom, so those are probably going to be for like avoiding like running off of like stairs and things like that. One thing that kind of bums me out about a bunch of these round vacuums is how small the actual brushes are right there in the center. I mean, compared like to something like this older needle vacuum here, you can see how much bigger it is. It's pretty much the entire width of the vacuum itself. See, this one here is about like maybe like 2 inches shorter or so. So definitely a little bit smaller. Well, I don't really see much else worth looking at down in here. Oh, actually, if we remove this right here, we can see that that's where the contacts are for the charging base. Got some sort of other optical thing right there. I'm going to guess that that's probably for when it's like backing up to a line to the charging station. Maybe that's what it's using. So yeah, externally, not much else to see. We're going to take this over to the main bench and open it up. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stuff on the base station itself. Now, inside of here, that's where the canisters are, I believe, for like dirty water. I guess one has clean water and one has dirty water. I don't know which one's which just yet. See, we got two of those right there. They almost kind of look like juice pitchers or water pitchers. This one has a little magnet right there, like a little floating magnet. So I think that's going to let the rest of the base station here know when it's probably like running low on water. And this one here actually has a floater on the top side, and that's just going to close these off when it's got like too much fluid inside so that it can't like dump any more into it. And then I'm going to guess that maybe there's like a pressure switch or something that lets it know that it's too full. Yeah, don't know yet. Or maybe it has a magnet on it as well. Yeah, maybe like right in there. Kind of hard to see, and I don't think I'm going to be able to easily remove this without potentially breaking the plastic, but it looks like there's a little magnet in there. So maybe there's a like a little magnetic sensor inside of the base station, like up here, that when this thing like floats up, it lets it know that it's full, basically. In here somewhere, let's see, this thing went which way? So since it went like that, then I'm guessing that somewhere in here, that's where we're going to find a sensor for that floater. All these little ports right here all have like a little bit of a gasketing material on there, kind of like a little bellows, except that it doesn't like squish down. Instead, it's like kind of like tapered so that it kind of like seals up against those. So that's kind of nice. Do not remove. What are they hiding in there? That almost looks like a USB-C type port. Yeah, look at that. Let's see what's in there. I guess it doesn't matter too much. We're going to be able to see it all anyways. Got a couple more little covers right here. Those are obviously covering up something. Looking inside of here, that's not a button or anything. Not much else in there. Looks like there may be a little bit of a drain right here, like maybe if some fluid or something like spills out, it can kind of drain out that way. Inside of the base station, we see we've got those two ports right there. Not entirely sure why it's got two. The vacuum only seems to have like one port for emptying out its contents. The other side has just vents, so I'm not sure what all that's about. There is a roller here with like, it almost seems kind of like a one-way roller type thing. There's another thing here that says remove before use. Oh, that kind of lifts this entire piece out there. So there you go. You can see it, how it's kind of got these sort of like wedges that all point in like one direction. So this piece of foam here, this can come out like that. That frees that up. And these little bumps, I believe those are probably for cleaning the brushes, like the mop heads. So it just helps like agitate them and maybe, you know, like help remove more material or more of the fluid that's on them. Got these other little pieces here that look like squeegees almost. No idea what those do, but we can see that they're not both in the same position. So this one's like down over here this way. This one's like up here this way. Oh, I was going to say, these look like they can rotate, and they do. If we kind of move this around like this, we can see how those rotate like that. So I think what these are doing then is they're actually squeegeeing the fluid that falls down into these cavities so that the vacuum can suck them up. or something in here does the sucking. I'm not entirely sure. So I guess maybe the vacuum itself drives the mop heads, and when they're in the base station like this, it like scrubs them up against all these bumps, and as the fluid is falling, then those squeegees down at the bottom take care of like mopping it up so that it cleans it all out of the way. I don't know everything about this vacuum yet or anything like that, so I'm kind of learning as I go. I've also got another protective layer here on the base station, so I'm just going to leave that attached for now. Now, up here on the back, this got this little piece right here, and from what I just looked up real quick, you can apparently hook this up to an auto cleaning and draining, some other separate kit, and that's what it appears that this is for. And I guess maybe this little barrel connector here also has something to do with that. There's the main on and off switch. It doesn't come with like any other power supply or anything that plugs into that, so I'm guessing that this is probably used in conjunction with the auto fill and auto empty feature. Down here, going down a little ways, there's a little rubbery, what feels like a little rubbery cover here. Can't remove that just yet. It's kind of tight in there. The power cord hooks up into here. It has this little area there where you can wrap the cord around. I guess if it's too long, it'll help you kind of keep it a little organized. And not much else here on the back. So that's it for there. Looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. And maybe this entire backside can come off of this unit. All right, so I think we done plenty of looking at to see what's on the outside of these things and what's obvious. So now let's take them both to the bench, and we'll see what else we can learn. I totally feel like the ShenWow guy. Okay, so I figured let's take the base station apart first, just because I'm kind of hoping it's the least dense of the two. I thought I had already started recording, and I actually loosened up all 6 screws already, and right when I was done with the last one, I realized that I was not recording. So all the screws are loose, and I also loosened up the screws from this little cover here, so I guess we might as well remove that first. Comes off fairly easily, and it just looks like it gives you access right there. This is all, let's see if I can show you here, but if you look down there, so this is all open, so I'm guessing there must be some plumbing that would go from like outside to in here to the tanks, and that's how it's able to like pump water in and out, or to like push water in and somehow pump it out. It looks like we actually have 3 more screws in there that I did not know about, so let's go ahead and remove those. Now, I'm kind of hoping that in the process of doing this, I don't damage it, because we have not tried it out yet. You saw I just took it out of the box, and also because it wasn't exactly a cheap piece of kit. The whole entire set retails at $1,700, and or $1,699.99, if you will. But we actually didn't buy it for that price. Dreame was offering a discount code that you could buy for $59, and then once the thing went up for sale, you were able to buy it with a discount code for $1,240.99. So definitely saved a big chunk of change there. And I don't think my wife would be too happy if I were to damage any part of it. Let's see. Okay, now this thing here I was able to remove now. So there's a cover in there. And it looks like it's some sort of little access port right there. So that could be like a, I don't know, maybe like a serial communications port or something. It's got 6 contacts. We'll see that in better detail here in a minute once I can actually remove this cover. Okay, so even though all of these screws are loose, it's kind of feeling like there may be some clips along the edges here. So before I accidentally send any of these screws like flying off into space, I'm just going to try to remove them all with a magnet. And I'm just going to put them on a little magnetic tray here so I don't lose them. And I'm going to try to use one of these plastic pick things and see if I can maybe get this to separate. Yeah, there it goes. So it does have some snaps around there. I'll try it on the other side as well, down here. Okay, so it's loose over here, but I cannot get this part up here to loosen up. And I just realized that there's some screws on the lid here that we can remove. So I'm going to remove the lid. That way I don't accidentally break one of these hinges or something. And it just has 4 screws. As you can see right there, that's the left hinge if we're looking at it from the front. And this is the right hinge. So once I remove all 4 of these screws, what I will do so I don't misplace them is that I'm going to put them back on the lid part itself. Okay, so this should release the lid, and there it goes. So that's free. Okay, it feels like this inner frame right here looks like it can come out, but I'm going to pop both of these hinges inwards, and then this just looks like it's just going to snap out all the way. I think this is what's stopping the back from completely releasing. So it just has snaps like all the way around. And there we go. So that's that sort of like top frame there, and it just yeah, it just has some little snaps like all the way around. And looks like I already broke one. Shoot. Okay, so it looks like the best way to get this out is to kind of like push it this way because it snaps in this direction. And it looks like the reason why this is not coming out is because there's 2 more screws right here. So hopefully once those are out, the back can release. All right, so let's see if that releases the back. And yeah, it does. So there it goes. So that's the entire back cover. Not much to see there. It's just a bunch of like molded plastic. And I didn't break any tabs off of here. So this is all in a pretty good shape. So we'll move that off to the side. And that is the back side of this thing. Oh, looks like we've got a vacuum motor right here. Little fan. That right there looks like a valve. Got the main control board right here. A power supply. Little tiny board right here. Not sure what that's doing just yet. This looks like some sort of pump right here with a little solenoid right above it. Little plastic duct that might be for the... Oh, actually, yeah, I believe that's for the dust bin. For emptying out the dust bin, all the dust goes into the bag that's on the opposite side of this, which I kind of forgot to show. But if we open this up, it kind of just, you grab it from down here, and then it pulls out like that. And this is just the cover for that, for the little dust bag. That's where the bag goes. I guess you just pull on this part right here, and it comes right out. Got to make sure that that's kind of aligned there, but I think once you push it in place, it aligns it. So that's where all the dust goes in and debris and stuff and gets sucked into the bag. I've got another thing right here. I don't know what this is. I'm guessing it's probably going to be the filter. So it's not. Looks like that's a fluid tank right there. So, okay, I'm guessing that this is where the cleaning fluid goes. Looks like it's got a couple of contacts right there. And I wish this camera would stop going out of focus. Anyways, there's 2 contacts right there. That's probably to maybe like sense fluid level or something. This is definitely not something that I'd be able to open up without damaging. And I'm not going to take apart anything if it's going to potentially damage it. So I'll just kind of go as far as I can without damaging stuff. Although, looks like maybe there might be something hidden underneath these little covers there. There might be screws, because this here actually feels like it might be a separate piece. So it turned out that these were just 4 little adhesive back covers that were covering up 4 screws in there. And after loosening up the 4 screws, it turns out that there's another small pump in here. So this just takes fluid from the bottom of the tank, pumps it up, and then it injects it into the base station through this little port right here. And that's how it gets the water to mix with the cleaner. There's also a gasket that runs in this little channel up between the tank and this cover. Not much else to see inside of that little cavity. So yeah, all the exciting stuff is on the backside. So let's go from a top-down view again. This vacuum motor right here, it's a 127 volt, 1000 watt motor. It's got some just kind of like silicone ducting right here going down to the bottom. So looks like what it does is that it blows air in this direction through this duct. It comes out of one of those holes that we saw. That actually goes into the vacuum, and then it comes out this way. All the dust and debris comes out, and it goes into the bag. So it's basically like this, the vacuum motor right here is operating kind of like in a closed loop. So it's going like that, like out in through the vacuum and then out into the bag. So it's basically pushing all the debris and stuff that's inside the vacuum into the bag while it's sucking it out. So that kind of makes sense why there's two ports down there now. This right here appears to be some sort of flow meter. It's got some interesting little things in there. We'll look at it better here up close in a minute. I honestly don't even know where to start right now. There's, I mean, it's since it's just the first time I open this thing, it looks pretty daunting. But maybe let's remove this power supply here. Take a look at that real quick. Even though, I mean, there's not much to see. It's all pretty much out in the open. It's just a switching power supply. It's got, I'm guessing it's probably going to be like a triac right there or something for operating this motor, because I don't see any relays. We got the low voltage stuff coming out of that connector right there. That's all going to like the control board and like for all the low voltage stuff. This set of red wires right here, that just goes to the on and off switch. And that looks like it's just going to be interrupting the live coming from mains. Yeah, all of this stuff right here appears to be like high voltage output type things. So this has some clips around the perimeter. So it's got one like right here. It's got one right here, here, and here. So a total of 5. And there's only 2 screws holding the entire assembly in place. Oh, never mind. There's one more right there. So yeah, once all 3 of those come out, then we can easily undo these tabs. And these connectors here, they're the type that have a little tab that you have to like push down before it'll release. That little tab right in there. So with all those cables removed, that is the entirety of the power supply right there. And if we look at some of these traces down here, we can see that this one there is one of the ones that goes to the vacuum motor. And that goes directly into that device right there. So it looks like that is how they're controlling it. Like I said, that's probably most likely a triac. And we've got a lot more motors in here. There's a motor there. There's a motor there. And I did mention earlier how we were probably going to see a sensor somewhere in the area of where this floater right here kind of ends up when the container here with the dirty water is full. There it is right there. So because the tank goes in like in this direction right there, you can see right there, there's a floater. And as it goes in there like that, then it's able to detect, I guess, the position of that floater. I don't know if it detects like when it leaves that area or when it lifts up into that area. I think it detects like when it's not full yet. And then so maybe once the floater moves away from that area, then that's when it detects that it's full. So yeah, that makes sense right there. That's just going to be like a little Hall effect sensor. We can see that it's got 3 wires going to it. So I'm not going to bother removing that. This right here, where all these sort of like little portholes are, it's got this silicone gasket around it. And that's probably just to prevent like fluids and stuff from like leaking into here. It just kind of seals it against the back cover. Kind of looks like a wide heart. Since this is not going to interfere with anything, I'm just going to leave it on. Don't want to forget to put it on later. Now, I'm going to be honest here. There is so much little plumbing going all over the place that I'm worried that if I remove something, I might not put it back in the right orientation. So instead of like removing everything out of here and taking a look at one thing at a time, I think what I'll do is I'll just like remove individual things so we can take a look at it. And then I'm going to put it right back, you know, remove something else, put it right back. And then that way I'm sure that I don't accidentally like plumb something or miswire it. So we can start with this little motor right here. We see that we only got 2 little tubes coming out of it. And that has something to do here with the dirty water reservoir. So that just has the 2 tubes going in and out of it. I'm not sure which one's the in and which one's the out. Maybe we'll be able to tell once it's out. But if this is a pump of some sort, I'm not actually going to open up the pump. I don't want to damage any seals. I just want to kind of take a little general look at it. We see that we've got a couple wires going around this way. Just going to unplug it from right there. Plugs into that port right there. See, and that's another thing. There's so many ports. I don't know if it's possible to accidentally plug this into the wrong place. So that's why I'm just going to take turns here, taking stuff out. So with those removed there, this piece of tubing here should just slide off. Yeah, it just comes off just like that. So that is that. And it's a 12 volt motor. It says it's made by a JRC motor, 395. So by its shape here and by these sections, it looks like it's got one section there, a section there, a section there, and it's got some like gasket right there. Maybe this is kind of like a centrifugal like vein pump or something. Maybe it has like fluid coming into here and then it goes out this way. Not entirely sure. So that's going to have to do it for that one. Unfortunately, not going to be able to get in any deeper. There's all these like pads that are like stuck to it, and they're kind of like double-sided here there. So I really do not want to damage that. So this is just going to go right back in. Now, there we go. That's clamped back down, and that's not going to interfere with removing anything else. So it's fine if it stays on there. We see that we've got another little silicone line here coming in through there, going around down this way into this sensor looking thing right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that next. I have a feeling that maybe this is what senses how much dirty water is going into the reservoir. And maybe this means that this is the inlet and that's the outlet. But there are no obvious indications that I can see, or if there are, they're covered up with that little foam material that's taped onto it. So I can't tell either way. And here we are, closer look at that sensor. So it's got a little connector here that unplugs. Got to squeeze in this little tab right there and then it releases. It's got two screws right there that look like they just hold this part here on. These two actually hold the body of the sensor. So if I remove these two screws, we should be able to take a look at the other side of that. And the silicone tubing here, it's easier if you just push from like the very end and kind of like compress it towards where you want it to come off. There we go, slides right out. So yeah, this as you can see right there, definitely looks like an optical sensor, and then it's got some like reflective material on the opposite side. So I'm guessing what this is as fluid is going through here, it's able to detect like how much light is getting bounced back from the reflector over here in the back, and then that way it can tell how dirty the fluid is. Let's go ahead and remove these two screws, and then we can take a look at that sensor or the little optical units on the opposite side. Okay, so those two screws are out. So this entire thing comes off like this. And there we go. So it looks like maybe one side's going to be an emitter. The other side's going to be the receiver. Let's see if I can push those tabs in and get the back open. Maybe we can see inside there. Oh yeah, it's coming off pretty easily. So that's one side out. Just using a little tiny screwdriver right here to push them up like that. So that comes out. Oh dang, there's an entire IC in there. So let's see if we can take that little board out. There we go. So that right there is probably going to be like an infrared diode or something, or I mean, it could be colored too. I don't know. Then that looks like a photo diode. So then that right there is probably just going to be like an amplifier for it. And I don't know if it provides maybe like a digital data out or something. That chip right there looks like it says VB 19000-002. I don't know if it's going to be like a custom chip or whatever, but there we go. That's what's inside of that. Let's go ahead and put it back together. Okay, before I actually attach this connector back on, this is actually mounted on this other assembly that this blower is also mounted on. So we can see right there, we've got a one screw. And actually, if we remove these two right here, then this blower can come out. Not as easily as I thought. Looks like maybe I'm going to have to remove those two screws right there from this. Looks like a little duct, and then it has some high voltage lines going into it. I think this must be a heater of some sort. So let's see about that. Oh, and that has two other screws down here as well. So it's got one right there and one right there. Okay, so with those out, let's see if this comes off. And it does. Yeah, so it looks like a little ceramic heater inside right there. So this probably blows hot air into these ducts. And that appears to go out into the area where the mop heads get cleaned up in. And since this is just ducting and then the little heater cartridge right there, I'm not going to bother opening it up. I don't want to break those tabs. But, I mean, we kind of get the idea of what exactly that is. So I'm just going to move this off to the side for a minute and take a look at what else is in here. So I guess I can leave those two screws on to hold the fan in place, since there doesn't appear to be anything underneath it. And these, they don't snug the fan up completely. They basically just hold it captive in there so that it can't pop out. So if we remove these screws, that should release this entire assembly. Okay, I couldn't figure out why this entire unit here didn't want to release. And that's because there's a screw hidden underneath the fan. So I had to end up leaving those screws off anyway. So I'm just going to move the blower here off to the side and then take off that screw right there. And that allows this whole assembly here to lift up. And let's see what's hiding underneath it. Oh, wow, there's another board in here. And that has a little cable set that goes in through an opening in here. It's got two little tabs on the sides right there. So once we squeeze those in, it should pop out just like that. And now we can move this entire cover here with the optical sensor here right off to the side. Okay, so this board is going to be what's part of the unit that helps the vacuum align itself with the base station. So I have a feeling that this is probably just going to be like some optical thing on the opposite side. It's got two small screws right there that I can remove. Okay, no, those are out. Now we can lift this out of here. There it goes. Yep, and it looks like it's also got another little sensor right there. And it looks almost like an LED right there, but that could also be like a photodiode or something. It's got another one on that side. And then this thing right here, that's a reflector of some sort. So it probably has, I don't know, maybe light comes in through there. It comes out this way and it forms like a line of sorts, like outwards. And that's how it's able to like project like a signal or something. And then the vacuum can use that to find its way back to the base station. There is some sort of device down in there, or it's possible that that could also be the receiver. And maybe that takes in like light and then it shines it down or reflects it down into that possible sensor. Yeah, not entirely sure what's going on there, but I mean, that's pretty much what this assembly is. And then we can see how it's all like conformal coated to kind of protect it from like moisture and stuff so it doesn't get all like corroded. And then this right here is basically just some material that'll let through like infrared light, but it looks black. So not much else to look at there. These two devices right here, those are the like the spring-loaded contacts for the contacts that make contact with the robot itself to provide power for charging. So, I mean, it's just a couple of spring-loaded contacts there. I'm not going to bother removing those. There's another set of contacts down here. You can see we got a little red wire going to it right there. And then another black wire going to it on this side. I can't tell what those are for. Actually, I just kind of looked at the bottom there. It looks like there's two like electrodes on the back side of the base station there. And maybe they're for like sensing moisture because it doesn't look like they go to anything else. They don't make contact with this washboard or anything like that. So it's not like they are interfacing with anything there. And so, yeah, I think that about does it for this bottom section of the base station. I can put this back together here, and then we can look at some of the other stuff a little bit higher up on the unit. This right here, all this plumbing, I mean, it's not worth taking off for any reason. Like I said, I don't know what goes in, what goes out, or anything like that. So I'm just going to leave all the plumbing alone. More interested in like all the electronic bits and stuff like that. Okay, I couldn't figure out why this thing didn't want to go back on properly, but this little T right here, actually it's got more than just 3 barbs there. It's got this little one here off to the side. It has to go in this little spot for it right there. So that way it keeps it out of the way of the bottom of this assembly. And I couldn't get this thing to like go all the way down. And I couldn't figure out why. And that's why right there. So now this should, yeah, now that feels a lot better. So I'll continue reassembling this and then we'll move on to a different area. Okay, and another thing down here, it's easier to bring these two as an assembly together because then you can get this thing like fully inside of like this little silicone like shroud right there. And then that way you can drop both of them into place like that. I was actually struggling to get this like in underneath there because I had mounted the blower in first. But now that both of them are in together like that, I can secure it. And gotta make sure I have enough cable here. This is kind of tight here. It's not like crazy tight, but they left just enough cable there for it to go around and into the side there. But now I can put the rest of the screws on and secure everything here in place. All right, so now everything in this area is safe and secure. I can reattach this little piece of tubing down here to the sensor, but I'm not going to plug this one in just yet because leaving this one off to the side is going to allow me access to get to the screws of the big vacuum motor in here. And the vacuum motor has 4 screws. There's one down there, one down there, down there, and one down here. So I'm assuming that once all 4 of those are out, the entire motor should just be able to be pulled up. it has this little duct right here. It's like a little silicone duct, and there's not much holding it in place except for like two little tabs on the side of this housing here. So that looks like it should just come out like that, and that's it right there. It has a little hole right here, and you'd think that maybe there'd be something on this end of the ducting right here, but there's nothing. So it basically just slips on there, and it's not even that tight. So that's pretty much the only thing that holds it on. Okay, and these screws, they don't just screw in and hold the entire assembly down. There's also these like silicone washers that fit between them. So it goes like that. This fits over, there's yeah, like a little standoff right there that kind of centers it. And then it just tightens up over it like that. So it has a little bit of like cushioning there. So just got to make sure I don't misplace any of those. And these screws don't feel like they're bottomed out all the way. It looks like they are just tightened up enough to almost make contact with the standoff itself. But it's backed off just a little bit so that it's kind of just floating a little bit above the standoff. And I keep dropping that in there. Oh well. Just move on to the next one. Just fell further. All right, gonna have to hunt that one down. Okay, that should release the motor. There it goes. So yeah, that's it right there. Almost looks like a typical vacuum motor. And that's where it sucks the air in right there. You can see the impeller. This gasket right here, I'm not sure how much it's... Oh, it looks like it'll come off. Try to be gentle because it feels really soft. This stuff is like, almost feels like foam. There we go. It comes off like that. Try to make sure that I keep the orientation right. Oh, okay. So it's got like this sort of like little groove in there. And that's where the wiring comes out of. Yeah, I mean, we can pretty much see what it looks like inside there. No point really like taking everything apart. It's kind of cool that they made it all see-through. Right here in the back, it's got kind of like this little rubber bushing that kind of adds some like shock absorption to the motor right there, so that it's not vibrating the crap out of the base station. And that's basically what this piece here in the front does as well. This stuff is just like softer, and it's like a kind of a dense foam, it feels like. Wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what material this is because I have no idea. So that's my best description, is that it's some type of foam. Okay, so let's just go ahead and put this back together. And down here, it just has a kind of like a really fine mesh filter. You can kind of see like my hand there on the opposite side. And that's just going to be for like preventing any like dust, like big particles or whatever, getting sucked in through the vacuum motor. And the screw that I dropped fell down in here, which is like one of the only areas it could have possibly fallen down in. And of course, it's like right there. So I have no access to that from the other side. So I'm going to have to stick a magnet in there, try to get the screw back out. Okay, this should hopefully get it out. There it is. I think I got it. There it is. Okay, and I mean, nothing else to look at in this area, so we can put the vacuum back on there. And that should be it for this part. There is some wiring that goes into this little cavity in here, but it doesn't look like there's any access to it from in here anyway, so putting the vacuum motor back on shouldn't interrupt anything. Okay, I remagnetized the screwdriver, and it definitely makes a difference. And one thing I kind of noticed here, it's best to put all the screws on first before tightening any of them down, because once you start tightening up any of the screws down, it starts like tilting the motor to that side, and then it's going to be a little bit more work to get it to like straighten out in order to be able to put the screw up on, or the screw down on the other side. So it's a lot better if it's just sort of there, but not snug down just yet, like leave it kind of loose. And I'm going to put all 4 of them on and then just kind of take turns tightening them up. Like I said, these didn't feel like they were completely bottomed out. They were just like a hair above the actual standoff. All right, there we go. That's all back in place. And now I can put this little piece of silicone duct back on. This right here is just a couple of spring-loaded contacts for where that little tank of what I believe is where the cleaner goes. That's just the contacts for that. So you can see it's got a little bit of compliance there. It can move around. That's the little fluid port that was down at the bottom. And right here, it appears to have some sort of probably a fluid sensor there. If it detects like that there's fluid in there, or if it detects that it's like empty or whatever. Now this thing here, I just realized what this is. This is going to be the water heater. So it looks like maybe it takes water in from this bit of tubing right here. It goes through this little brass like coupler. It's grounded. So it looks like maybe fluid comes in through here, goes in this way, goes into the heater, and then this is where it comes out. So this is going to be basically like a hot temperature resistant tubing. That's the one that goes down into that little Y. And looks like the reason why it has that little extra barb there on the side is for the cleaner. That's where it mixes. And then we saw that it was kind of like Y-shaped, and then it has the two that go off to the sides. Now, interestingly, I just noticed this. If we look right here, where this hot water line comes into that barb that goes out to where the washboard goes, there's a zip tie right there. And that one looks like it's been somewhat tight, and it's not even that tight. But the one on the opposite side, this right here, was never tightened down at all. So whoever was in charge of assembling this thing didn't do a thorough job. Now, I don't know how much of a risk there is of this line like here, like popping out. But since it looks like they put these zip ties here for a reason, I think I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down and make sure that the other side is kind of maybe snug down as well. Because as we saw right there, that feels kind of snug. I think I'll just tuck that in right there. I'm not going to worry too much about it. But this side right here definitely still feels loose. So see if I can tighten that up a little bit. Yep, it clicked a few times. There we go. Now it feels snug. So now it should be okay. Oh man, that's kind of scandalous. So this here looks like it just has 1, 2, 3 screws. I'm not seeing any fourth one yet. So let's go ahead and take these off and see how far that gets us. This valve right here looks like it just has 1 screw. This almost looks like some sort of maybe like a diverter or something like that, because it has 3 ports. So that comes off right there. Gives me access to that screw down there. Okay, that's all 3 of those. Let's see, will this come off? Yep, that loosens it up. So that black and that red wire that went to the control or the power supply, that's what those are for. Dang, that's a 1,000 watt heater. I don't want to take this one apart just because I don't want to ruin any seals. It does look like it's got some control lines right here coming off the side, and those go to the main board right there. So this looks like it should just unplug. I don't know. This does not want to release. I don't really want to break it, so I'm just going to leave that attached for now. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother removing this from this housing. It looks like it's got some like safety shutoffs, so if it maybe gets like too hot or whatever, it'll like disconnect it. Maybe this one here might be like a pressure switch of some sort, because it's got this little body here that kind of like sticks out. Now it does have a website right here that says www.tyrec.cn, and I was able to pull it up, and it looks like maybe they manufacture like these like little water heater modules. So I'm just going to leave this assembled how it is, and I'll just go ahead and put it back down. So this little, what I think is a little diverter valve right here, it looks like it has area right here for like 4 mounting points. Maybe there's like a little bracket or something that could have like come over it. But it only uses that 1 screw right there to secure like the little valve body right there to the rest of the case. So that's the only thing that holds it in there. And this other motor down here looks like it's going to be some sort of a other pump or something. It only has 2 screws holding it down. So removing those 2 right there should allow this little cover here to come off, and it's another one that's wrapped up in foam. So yeah, not entirely sure what kind of pump that is, but that's obviously going to be a pump of some sort. And I thought that this line here where the cold water comes into the heater, I thought it was coming from up here, but it looks like it's not. It looks like it goes into this pump. So maybe the water comes in through here into that line, into the pump, and from the pump out into the heater. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that makes sense, because there's only one line here going to the like the water reservoir. So it looks like it comes up, goes around. You can't see it here, but it goes around this way, goes to another little T right here. It looks like it's got a maybe like a pressure relief valve. We'll see it over here. It's kind of like off into that corner. We'll move the positioning here a little bit. But so yeah, and then it looks like it flows down into that little valve there. So I don't know. This other line right here goes down into the base of the base station, and that one is one that's going out and looks like it interfaces to the vacuum itself. Okay, so that's it for that area. And I just noticed something here. It looks like they've run fluid through this thing. You can kind of see it right there when I squeeze these lines. And that kind of makes sense why on the washboard, I kind of noticed that there was some like water spots right there. That's brand new. I just took this out of the box, as you saw. So yeah, they probably test it to make sure that there's at least like something going through there. You can see a bunch of residue down in there. So yeah, definitely looks like they at least do some testing to make sure that it's working. And now here is the main board. Now it's really hard to see here because the entire board is conformal coated, but the main little chip right here, that's a GD32F303, and that's pretty much like the only major IC on this thing. There's like another one right here, but that looks like it's just going to be like a voltage regulator of some sort. Looks like several other sections here are probably going to be voltage regulators. There's this little transformer looking thing right there. What does that go to? That seems to go to that little barrel connector that was over here on the backside that we saw. So maybe that's just like filtering for that or something. So yeah, not a whole ton of stuff to see here. I mean, this is going to be like controlling everything. And as we can see, like pretty much all these lines are like running straight into there. So yeah, there might be like maybe like some power devices or something to like control motors and valves. But as far as like anything interesting goes, not really. There's that little port that was accessible from the back. So maybe that's like a, judging by the fact that it's got 6 connections, maybe it's a JTAG port. I mean, it could also be serial. Like I said, I have no idea. So if like any hackery is going to go on with this thing, it could probably be done through like that port right there. There's one unused connector down here. No clue what that would have gone to. Although I did read somewhere that some versions of this actually have like a UV light. This American version doesn't. So, I mean, as we saw, there's like no UV light like anywhere in this unit. So maybe that could be for that. There's also another connector right here that's missing. And yeah, none of these connectors are labeled as to what they are. And honestly, there's no point in removing this board because I can actually see like the underside right here. There's nothing there. So I'm just going to leave that in place. And there's only a few other things left to look at inside of this thing. There's a little board right here, and that's directly behind where that sticker was that says do not remove. So we're not going to remove the sticker, but we're going to remove this and see what it is. What's the bet that it's going to be a USB-C port? I don't know. Let's find out. This one screw off. There's the other screw off. Drum roll, please. Oh, come on, come out. There you go. Flipping it over. It's a USB-C type port. But then again, I guess that was easy to guess due to the fact that it did have what looked like a USB-C port right there on the sticker. Well, auto water sub. Oh, okay. So maybe when you have the automatic fill and drain attachment or whatever, maybe you have to have access to this. So that's interesting. But yep, that's what's there. So there's no actual like electronics on here. It looks like everything just goes straight out into this connector. It just has a like a diode right there, and maybe some other tiny smaller diodes there just for static protection. But yep, that's it. So well, we'll just put that back on. So I bet if you get that water automatic kit, it probably tells you like, hey, you know that sticker that says do not remove? Yeah, go ahead and remove it. This little solenoid right here, that just looks like a relief valve because that's plumbed directly into the water line. That's a little bit further up ahead right here into this Y. So it probably just relieves like a vacuum from these lines when it's maybe like pumping water or whatever, or maybe once it like just needs to like flush out the water in the line, maybe it opens this up to be able to like pull air through it so that it doesn't pull any more water down into it. That's just a guess. Like I said, I have no idea how exactly any of this stuff works. It's all just kind of guesses based on like what I'm seeing. So that's what I'm guessing that's for. There is a little bundle of wires that goes down into the casing right here, but it looks like I'm going to have to remove some additional screws there in order to be able to take the front off there and see what else is hiding inside. Because as we saw, there was also another bundle of wires that kind of went down into there. So I'll see if I can figure out how to take this front cover off, and then we'll take a look at that stuff. And that looks like it's going to be the end of everything here on the base station. Looks like we pretty much covered most of it. So I was in the middle of reconnecting all the connections to the power supply, and my wife walks into the garage and she goes, "You took it apart?" I said, "Yeah, it's for a video." I said, "Don't worry, I won't mess it up." So I thought she knew what I was going to do with it. She wasn't mad or anything. She's totally cool with it, so no problems. I should have told her that it was a kit and we had to put it together. And we're almost done with the base station. There's a few things that are still left to look at. But as you might have noticed here, I removed the power supply again. And that's because I was trying to figure out how to remove this section here from the rest of the base station. And it turns out that after you remove these 6 screws right here, there's 2 more just behind like the very front, the like top of the base station. There's like 1 screw here, 1 screw here. And interestingly, I noticed that it had like this sort of little pattern right here of where it looks like maybe whoever was assembling this thing at the factory, their like driver like slipped off the screw and it just like made some little marks right there. Because I mean, I'm not using anything powered. I'm just using the little handheld screwdriver. So that wouldn't have been me that did that. That was already there. And so after all 8 of those screws are removed, this whole assembly here can actually pop out, and it's kind of like a little tub if we're looking at it from the other side. I did have to disconnect all of the connectors that were right here, but what I did to try to make sure that I don't put them back in like the wrong places, I zip tied everything in its location, or like right here where everything kind of like met up. And then that way I know that, you know, it's whatever length they are, that's where it's going to sit. So this whole bundle here, I can kind of like put it off to the side. I disconnected this line coming up from the dirty water sensor right there. I disconnected this little Y here, although I'm not sure that it was completely necessary. But after all that's removed, I can take this entire assembly here, bring it up and over, and that reveals this little board right here, which I don't know if this is going to be able to focus. It might be too close to the camera. Yo, okay. So there's some LEDs and what look like a couple of little transistors there. So this is just for this little light pipe that's like right here. There's like a little status light right there in the front. I'm guessing that's what it's for. These are maybe like RGB LEDs or something. So depending on like what the status of the base is, you know, like charging, or you know, maybe like cleaning itself out or whatever. Maybe that I'm assuming that changes colors depending on that. I don't know what the colors are just yet. And other thing that we can see here is right in here is where that little cable bundle goes. So that right there, that's going to be the hall sensor for the water tank. That's going to probably get set off when the water level drops below a certain point. As we saw, there was that little round floating magnet. So when it gets down to like a low enough level, it's going to trigger this sensor. And that's what's going to let the rest of the circuitry know that, you know, you need to refill the water. So if there's like an issue where it's not detecting that the water's getting too low, it could be a problem with this sensor right here. We can actually remove that screw and quickly take a look at that board. All right, so I had to grab it with these forceps, and I'm trying to be gentle, not to squeeze it too hard or anything, but there it is. So it came out. It's got a bit of a snug fit in there, but it actually turns out that it has 2 Hall effect sensors right there. There's the one, and then there's 2. So maybe one of them actually kind of indicates that it's got like a full level, and then the other one that's kind of empty. But maybe the magnet just kind of floating in between the 2 is able to maybe give like an accurate reading of like the actual water level. Once again, I'm not sure. I've never used this before, so no idea. Well, it wouldn't really be able to tell you an exact water level just due to the fact that if the water level is like completely high up, the magnet doesn't go up that high. It only goes up to like this point right here. And then once it drops down to almost empty, you know, it'll go a little lower. So maybe just within that range, it might give you like a little bit of a reading. Okay, so with that stuff out of the way, going to drop this back down. And I was thinking that maybe we'd see like some sort of a little wireless transceiver or something somewhere in this unit, but I didn't see anything. So I'm going to guess that maybe communications between the robot and the base station is done through the power contacts, those two spring-loaded contacts there that make contact with the robot itself. Because I don't see anything on this board that resembles antennas or anything like that. Unless it's on the opposite side, but like I said, I didn't see any like boards or anything. There would maybe have to be like a printed antenna somewhere on the board, but even then, like I don't see any evidence over on this side of anything that kind of, it looks like there'd be an antenna in that place or something like that. Well, I said I wasn't going to remove the board, but curiosity got the best of me, so here we go. Let's see what's on the other side. Yeah, no, just traces and nothing resembling an antenna. Now, the last bit of electrical devices here that we have not looked at is there's a set of two wires here, really thin gauge wires going down over here by where the this duct is. And it turns out that right there, if we look at it from the front, down inside here where the plate from the end of, or where the inlet to the dust bag goes, there is a little micro switch right there. So that plate that slides in there, when it's inserted all the way, it pushes on that switch, and that's how it knows that the bag is installed properly. So if there's some issue with it, maybe saying that there's no bag installed or something like that, it could be a problem with that switch. Okay, so I've got all the screws reinstalled for this section of the base station here. And the last thing that I want to talk about before I close this thing back up is I think I figured out how the plumbing in here kind of works. So when the unit here is going to wash the little round mops down here, and it needs to like apply some like hot water to that area, it looks like what happens is water comes up from here, and this is where the clean water tank would be, like inside of the base station, and it only has one port, and it's got a tube inside of the actual container that goes all the way down to the bottom. So this little tube comes around, goes down, like down here underneath the motor, comes up and around this way. It goes to this little Y here, and then it goes into this pink pipe, and that goes to the little diverter valve that I believe is a little diverter valve. And the pink one continues down here underneath the heater and into this pump motor. From the pump motor, it comes out, it goes in through here, through this coupler that's grounded, and into the water heater. And I'm pretty sure the reason why it's got this brass coupler right here that's grounded is because there's going to be a heating element in here, and if for some reason something goes wrong with that, you don't want there to be like electricity flowing through the water. That could be a hazard. So this here is to ground that out in case something like that happens. So the cold water goes into the heater element right here, and it can come out from this piece of tubing right here, and then that's where it would split off, and it goes down into where the washboard is, and that's what it uses to clean the mop heads. Now, when the robot needs to get filled with water, it's not using this pump. If this diverter valve, it has the water coming in through here and going out to this pipe here that goes to this tubing that goes to that little like sort of nipple there that interfaces with the robot. And I was thinking, well, how does water get into the robot? Because it's not like it can be gravity fed. This goes like above the level of the tank. And then, like if it was going through here, it would go down. And also after thinking about it, I realized that you really wouldn't want to be pumping water from in here into the robot. So what I think is that the robot actually has a pump on the inside that pumps water from the reservoir tank down in through here, through the diverter valve, and through this piece of tubing here. And that's how it gets its water. Now, when this thing goes to empty out or to suck up all the dirty water, it does so through this tube here, as we already saw. It goes through this optical sensor and up through this other piece of tubing where it comes out, goes through here, goes around, or like here underneath this pump, comes up this way and into the tank. So this pump here is actually creating a vacuum, and that's how it's sucking up the water through this tube. And it pushes maybe like moisture and stuff in through this little piece of tubing here, through this Y, and back down into the base over here of the station where the washboard and everything is. And that little other piece of tubing right there that's inside where the little container for the cleaner goes, it's just a little like drain tube, just in case like some fluid maybe like leaks out or whatever in there. It can go down here and like drain off into the little wash area. But the reason why this pump here doesn't just create a vacuum and like exhaust it into the inside of here is because then it's going to be building up moisture inside of the base station, and we don't really want that. The safest place to have that go is like outside, where it can suck it back in and put it back into the dirty water tank. So I think that all makes sense. I also kind of got an idea of how it's supposed to work by reading like a few things in the manual. Oh, and one other quick little thing here. These two electrodes that I mentioned were over here. Yeah, it looks like those, all they do is detect the level of the water in the little wash area so that it doesn't like overflow and then you have like water, you know, like spilling out all over the floor or anything like that. So it's very important that these are attached and connected to the board so it can actually sense that, because otherwise it would probably just be pumping water out. And if it doesn't detect that water touches those two electrodes, it's just going to keep pumping water, and then you're going to have water like going out like all over your floor. So you wouldn't want that. So when I reassemble this, I'm going to make sure that everything is plugged in properly. Every little tube is connected. And that way, hopefully, once I actually try to run this thing, everything should be totally fine, like brand new out of the box. Okay, I think I've got everything reassembled and reconnected properly. I've like double checked, I've triple checked, and I don't see any issues. So I think everything should work. I made sure that everything's secure, made sure I didn't like forget any screws anywhere. And so I'm ready to put this thing back together. And I think we're done with the appetizer. And now it's time to jump to the main course. And just real quick, these are the little connectors here. Some of them have little tabs there that can be like pushed on to release them, but some of them don't. And the ones that are just basically sort of like friction fit in there, what I did is I took these tweezers and I just kind of put them over the two little side tabs that they have. And while holding like firm pressure against the sides, I was at the same time like kind of like pushing outwards so that I didn't like pull on the wires themselves, because I don't want to accidentally detach one from its little pin inside. So then I just kind of gently wiggled them out like that and got them to release that way. So that way I could totally like minimize damage. And there we go. Got the base station completely reassembled. And in my opinion, from a repairability standpoint, it seems like it would definitely be fairly easy to repair a base station, provided that parts are available or, you know, like easily accessible. I think it'd be more of an issue if like one of the pumps or the little heater went bad. I don't know that those would be available anywhere, so that may complicate things. But other than that, it's easy to take apart, easy to access the parts, and it's fairly easy to put back together without permanently damaging anything. All right, and we're ready to get started on the main course. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to remove this cover for the little roller brush. So that just easily pops out like that. We can set that aside. And now, as far as I'm aware, this should just be able to lift up just like that. So it's easy to remove. There's no belt or anything. It's just got like a bit of a square drive right here. And then it's got the little driving mechanism inside of there. This side here appears to just kind of like freewheel. So that's it for that. And there's a lot of screws down here. So we've got 1, 2. I can't tell if that's a screw here. Yeah, that is a screw. So yeah, all of these holes right here are screws. Got more screws right there. There's several little small screws around the bumper area. We could probably leave those on for now. We're going to see how far we can get in to like this bottom portion here, because there's like nothing from the top. These two little screws right here, I don't know if maybe that'll allow this thing to come out, but I guess we can find out. And once again, I'm going to use this little magnetic tray here so I don't misplace anything. Let's see. This is that Roboswing thing that they're talking about. Okay, I got this front side here to come out, but I don't think that's how it's supposed to come out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it seems like it's got to come out from this edge right here first, and then it's got some little tabs that kind of like fit in underneath here. So doesn't look like I broke anything, thankfully. But yeah, those screws there definitely need to come out. This, I don't know if it's actually going to come out or not. It's moving. There it goes. There we go. So that comes out. Okay, that has 3 little clips right here that kind of hold it onto this piece right there. And these rotate to extend the... look at it here from the side. So that's how it extends the mop heads like out, or it tucks them back in by rotating like that. I don't know what does the rotating just yet. We're gonna have to find out, but that's how that works. There's just one other screw inside of here, so this definitely needed to come off to have access to that screw. This right here is just shiny plastic. It's actually part of like all this, so that cannot come out. And then we've got one hidden screw right there underneath that sticker. That's one of those warranty seal stickers. So we're going to have to bust it open. Now, thankfully, it looks like a lot of the screws that are like in kind of hidden, like recessed areas, are these silver ones, and they're all the same size. So there's not much like risk of like mixing any up or anything like that. Ones that are more exposed, such as the ones that are like right here in like these areas, those are generally black. So that way they kind of like blend in. Oh, and something I probably should have done before I start to take everything here on the bottom off is remove the dust bin, and that's in here. It's this little thing right there. So kind of something interesting, I noticed this about this because I've already kind of looked at it, is this is where the dust comes in. Air would be sucked in from like right here from the, you know, whatever blowers inside of the machine. This little door closes this way. So when this has a vacuum going out this way, this door is going to get sucked closed. It's going to be sucking dust in through here. But there's another little vent right here that can get pushed in. So it's almost like air is also going to be coming in through like in this direction. This door can actually open, so you could like manually empty out the dust bin if you wanted to. But yeah, see, there's that little flap right there. So I think what happens is when the robot is sitting at the base station, air gets blown in through here by the big vacuum motor in the base station, goes through this little kind of like little trap door right there, in through here, and all the debris gets pushed out through this door, which would lift up like that and release all of the dust into the duct that goes into the bag inside of the base station. So that's how it's able to empty itself out. And then every now and then you have to like open this up right there, take out this filter and like wash it or replace it if it's like way beyond its like service life. Yeah, it looks like whenever this is in operation, there's always going to be a little bit of air coming in through that little vent right there. Check it out. Remove that warranty sticker completely intact. All right, and I think this is the last screw that needs to come off, and then maybe some things down here can start being revealed. There's a couple of plastic tabs in here that look like maybe they're going to have to be like lifted up in order to release this. I'm not entirely sure yet. I don't see anything on this side, so let's at least try to start with that. Okay, that feels like it released this side at least. Okay, after releasing that one, this is a little bit more free. Definitely feels like there's still something in here somewhere. Hopefully there's not a screw underneath this label. Oh, and if you're wondering why you keep seeing these like green labels everywhere, just covering up some serial numbers. Wouldn't want some of this information to be exposed. You know, this is a network connected device, and I don't know what people can do with that sort of information, so I'm just being cautious. Okay, so yeah, there actually are 2 more tabs in there. I can actually see them now in this light. So if I can get a thin screwdriver in there, I may be able to kind of like pry them up in this direction, and hopefully that should release things. Or maybe taking a pick in here and prying up should help. All right, so I've released those 2, and this there it goes. That releases that bottom cover. So we got 4 clips right there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And actually, there's one right here that's going to be right there by where this little sort of like caster wheel is. And then there's a couple of snaps right there, like right in the middle for this little assembly right there. And it appears that that's about it. That's all that holds this piece in place other than the screws. So now we can set this aside. There is the battery. So that has a connector right here on the side. Just need a squeeze on that and pop it right out. There we go. Looks like it's got 8 cells inside of that. And that reveals another screw in here, another silver one. So take that off. Okay, that feels like it's going to release the top side. So let's see if that pops out. Yeah, you can see it separating right there. Unfortunately, it looks like we are going to have to remove some of these bumper screws. Unless it like tilts out. No, I'm not making any progress, so I'm going to remove the screws from the bumper and see where that gets us. Oh, and I just realized that this also exposes 4 other screws in here, the silver ones. So there's 1 right there, 2, 3, and where was the 4th one? 4, 5 actually. Okay, and that's all 6 screws off of this sort of like little trim piece down here underneath the bumpers. Okay, that's all, well, 4 I got. Let's take off the 5th one. Okay, that's all 5 of those other silver screws out of there. Let's see if that allows things to move yet. Okay, I think what's holding it up now is this protective liner. Because it feels like the bumper piece here sort of wants to come out. Well, I guess might as well remove it. Actually, I'm just going to leave it on there and I'm just slicing it, gently slicing it along this groove. Then that way I can still leave the protective plastic on. There we go. That should be 2 separate pieces now. Okay, I'm not making any progress regarding removing the top cover off, but it looks like maybe if we push these pins out from in here, looks like maybe these wheel motors should come out. And I just need something to grab it with to pull it out the rest of the way. Okay, so is this free? Kind of feels like it. It has that spring down in there. Just need to detach it from that little hook. Okay, but that does not allow me to pull the motor out. Not like on the Nido where I had the connector like right in there, I think it was. Oh wait, there's a connector on this side. Ah, they glued it. Well, that's disappointing. All right, I think I'm just going to leave that in place for now. I'm not going to bother with that. Maybe the connectors from the top are easier to remove. I would kind of doubt it, but we can remove this little assembly here for that little side brush. And we can see if maybe there's like a screw hidden underneath that. Okay, that seems to be easily rocking out right there. And it feels like I'm being stopped. Okay, so there's like a motor directly underneath that. There's no screw there. So I'll just reattach it for now. Oh, there we go. This trim piece right here is supposed to come off. So that just has these little snaps right there, like little buttons that just pop straight up. And it also has like a few little ones like right here along this little lip right there. So that's finally apart. And looks like we don't have any screws in here. There's another little port right there. So that's probably another programming port. And looks like I'm going to have to remove this hinge right there. I think that'll give me a little bit more access to be able to like maneuver this thing around. So let's see what taking these screws off here on the hinges does. Okay, there we go. So that allows the cover, the little hinged cover to come off. And not much in there. There's no springs or anything. It's just the plastic there kind of latches in place, like depending on where it's at. So very simple mechanism for that. All right, so now that's open. I had actually removed 2 little screws that were in here underneath some like little rubber covers. And looks like there's 2 more right there. So once those are out, that should give us a look into the little Lidar assembly. Oh wait, no, I didn't remove those screws. And it looks like, well, this one wasn't. They're not captive, but they are able to allow this to kind of move around a bit. Oh, I see. That's because they are mounted like to these little structures right there. And then this entire Lidar assembly is just mounted on that little rod that goes across on both ends right there. And there is the Lidar assembly. You can see the motor that drives it is right there. It's got a couple springs holding this cover, kind of like a little bit of pressure upwards. And this feels now like the bumper can finally come off, although there still feels like there's something attached over here. Okay, now that this Lidar assembly is exposed, I'm actually going to remove it. I don't want to rest the vacuum like on the top or like on that. So I'm just going to remove the screws and see if that allows us to pull the entire assembly out. Nah, feels like something's preventing it from coming up. It's probably the cable. All right, well, since I'm going to have to probably face this side down again, I'm just going to put the screws on. Okay, and I think it's actually the camera assembly that's preventing the bumper from completely coming off. I'm not going to rest this down on the Lidar there, but there's a couple of clips right there. So I'm going to lift those off and see if that allows the bumper to come off. All right, I finally got that to detach. And that there, basically, it's the camera. It has this sort of like a little rubber gasket around it, and that's to prevent like dust from getting into like the lens area. So I'm going to try to be like really careful with that. There are a couple clips down here on the bottom. There's two little ones on the side, and then there's two more on the top, but we can't quite see it yet because there's a couple of wires coming up to what look like these LEDs right there. You can see it right there. Got those two little wires. Don't want to break them, so I'm going to try to route them out. Okay, there is a little connector in here, and you can see it inside of there, and it looks like it has a little clip on it. So if I grab it with these forceps, I can gently squeeze on it, and it should come out. Yeah, just like that. Whew! It was like doing some crazy operation here. And so, yep, the vacuum is definitely a lot more tedious to take apart than the base station was. So yeah, now we can see in there, that's where the camera is. We try to like not get any dust into that area. And well, let's continue on and see how the rest of this cover comes off. I know that here on video, this is only going to seem like it was only a few seconds that it took me to figure out how to take this top cover off. But in reality, it was probably closer to maybe like a couple hours worth of investigating and trying to see what I could do to get this upper part to come off. And I finally figured it out. I thought that maybe there was like some screws or something hidden underneath this assembly right here where the brush, the big roller brush goes. It looks like it can move. There is a motor down there, and there was a screw that was attached right here between the motor and this little arm. I took that off thinking that maybe that would release this, but it didn't appear to do so. So this is still like in here. I tried to remove like these hinges, like pop them off on both sides. That didn't get this thing to move. And so I was trying to figure out a way to get that out of there, thinking that maybe there was like some screws underneath this that needed to come off in order to release the top. And it also has this like a rubber sort of like a seal around here. And it looked like it was sort of like plastic riveted over to the opposite side right here. And it's got a bunch of like little tiny pegs. But I was able to just get all those to like pop off and like remove them. They didn't break or anything. And I already did try. It can be reattached. So it just has to be like pushed back on. And then it all goes back together with no issues. And I had already actually removed the top, and I was trying to just kind of like set it back down so I could kind of show, you know, like what I did. But unfortunately, it snapped back into place, which is, I guess, kind of a good thing because now I can show like how it actually came off. So what I ended up having to do is get a little spudger tool like this one and stick it into this joint right here where the two pieces come together. And at this point, I can kind of like separate them a bit by like pushing up on this top part here while like holding on to the like the bottom side of the vacuum. So if I can make a gap big enough in there, I can stick this pry tool into that joint and run it along the edge while trying to get the bottom part to push this way while I get this top part to kind of push this way. because there are some clips in here internally that will release it. I think, oh, that's how I did it. So I stuck it in like this side, like this, and then just kind of ran it along. It feels like it actually didn't like snap in completely, I guess. So once that's ran through there and those clips come loose, then this entire like upper part can come off. But it doesn't just come off. There are two cables, one that goes to the Lidar assembly, and then there's also like down here, there's a little microphone. So there's two cables that are attached to the mainboard inside. So you can actually like bring it up a little bit like this, and we can kind of see one of the cables right there, and those will go to the board. So once this is like up enough, it gives you access to be able to pull those off their connectors. And if I flip this over, you'll be able to see those connectors I'm talking about. So there's this one here, which is actually like a multi-position connector there. And so I've got too much light here now. But this thing here, this little white piece of plastic, is kind of reflective. But the microphone plugs in right there. So that's where that would have been, like that. And then the Lidar assembly, its connector is right there. Now, I already saw something in here that I don't like. And honestly, I'm getting kind of for the price that this thing costs, I'm a little disillusioned by this. But the cable here that goes to the Lidar assembly, it's pretty short. So it looks like what it does is and this is going to be kind of hard to see here, but it looks like it has to come over this way in order to connect to the board right there. And so unfortunately, what that does is that it actually pinches the cable on this little lip right here. And I'll get a closer shot here in a minute. Okay, so after doing a little more analysis here, okay, I'm a little wrong. It's not what I thought. But when I took it apart, I realized that looks like when it was assembled, this cable was actually pinched up on this lip on this side. And you might be able to see it right there. I'll get a closer shot with the microscope so you can see it. But it's actually like put an indentation there of where the cable was. And it's actually pinched, or the wires here are actually pinched a little bit. And so over time, I think with like vibrations, that could have potentially kind of like cut through the wires and caused issues with the Lidar assembly. So when I put this back together, I'm going to make sure that this cable stays like tucked in like under here. And then it appears that there's actually a small cutout right there on this bottom assembly where the cable can come through and connect to its little connection point right here. So yeah, like when this was assembled, it appears that the cable was in the wrong position there, and that's why that got pinched. The microphone doesn't appear to be an issue as long as it's plugged in right there. There's like plenty of room inside where it can just kind of like freely like float in there. So that's not a problem. But now we finally have access to the inside, and it looks like everything else in here is going to be like pretty easy to get to. I don't have to do like any crazy like trying to find out like where hidden things are in order to be able to detach them. And as far as like this top section goes, like I said, there's just a little microphone in there. This right here is a little like silicone membrane there for the buttons that are mounted on this little board down here. This is the Lidar assembly, and I'm not going to bother removing the screws for that because we can see like what's underneath. So there's a little control board there. There's a little motor, kind of looks like a CD-ROM motor. There's also a tiny little button right here in the center. I don't know what that is. It doesn't appear to be accessible from the top, like under normal circumstances. It only seems to be accessible if you remove like that top cover piece. Actually, I realized afterwards that that tiny little button can be pushed by the Lidar cover. If, like, say the vacuum is traveling and it starts going underneath a piece of furniture, but the furniture is too low that it can't totally clear the Lidar assembly, it'll bump the cover, and the cover will actually push that button. And then there's another little button right here, and that looks like it's for that right there. So that appears to be like a reset button. So maybe if like you lose access to this, you forget a password or something, maybe you're able to completely reset the robot that way. Not much else up here. Little light pipe for the little LED right there, and that's just looks like it's for the connection status. And on the Lidar assembly, we can see a little tiny 4-pin connector down in there, and that was covered up by this little red rubber piece that just kind of like fit in there. I'm not going to take this thing completely apart to see everything, but it looks like maybe if I just remove those two screws at least, it'll allow this cover to come off, and then maybe we can kind of see a little bit in there. But I really don't want to like throw anything in there like out of alignment. it doesn't appear that anything is aligned from the outside. So I think we're safe if we at least just remove those 2 screws. We'll see what we can actually take a look at in there. The assembly appears to be belt driven. Like, it's hard to see in there, but it looks like there's a belt inside that goes to like this part here that spins. So there's no like fancy gearing or anything. And so taking a closer look at the Lidar assembly here, I'll remove these 2 screws and we'll see what's underneath. All right, there's that. So that exposes the entire little Lidar assembly right there. And all those screws right there, those are, I'm definitely not going to touch those. I'm not going to move that lens. You can see right there, that's the laser. So as it's rotating, it's like sending out a beam. And then this is like picking it up. And that's what it uses to kind of like make a map of the room or whatever. And it looks like just opening this up right there and removing these 2 screws. Now we should be able to remove this cover right here. And that exposes the belt. So it should be fairly easy to replace the belt here in case there's issues with that, or if it like breaks or something, or if this thing's like slipping. You can see right there. So show how that goes right there. So that can just come off like that. Remove it from around that big drum right there. Belt comes off. One thing I noticed in here is that there didn't appear to be like any slip ring or anything, because as we can see on the bottom there, it's like completely flat, so like nothing sticks out. So I got kind of curious there, and there's actually 3 screws that can be removed from this top board. So there'd be like one right there, and one right there. And if we remove those, we can actually pull this entire assembly out without like throwing anything out of alignment. At least I hope not. But if we flip it over, we can see that it's got a coil right there mounted on a board that's, if this would focus, you see that it's kind of like mounted a little bit like raised up right there. So that's how it's basically getting power to this board. It's like magnetically coupled. Actually, it looks like that's on, it's glued. I don't want to remove it, but it looks like it's got a connector there that could be pulled off if it wasn't glued. And then it has what looks like maybe a like infrared LED right there, because on the opposite side, I can see right there that it says like PD1, so that would be like a photodiode. So this appears to be like sending data back down through that photodiode, and then the coil is actually used for powering it. And there's also a get that right there. Like we see, we got another like photo sensor right there. So one side would be the transmitter, the other side would be the receiver. And that looks like it's for like getting its position. We can see that there's like a bunch of like little teeth looking things right there. So as it's rotating, it's able to know like where exactly in its rotation it is, so that it can get its like angle, you know, like I guess relative to where the robot is or whatever. So that's all mounted. This entire assembly here is mounted on this big bearing. And so that just kind of freely rotates like that. Yeah, this is definitely a little more interesting than I thought it was going to be. And we can see right here that there's 4 diodes, or 4 pretty large diodes. So the power coming through that coil right there is going to be like alternating. And then this thing here looks like it's going to be rectifying that current. And that's what provides power to this entire board. See right there, you got the laser. That right there is going to be like it's going to be like a little camera sensor, basically, I think. And that's got this little tiny ribbon cable here that interfaces those 2 boards. Got a 3-pin connector right there for that laser diode. So, yeah, that's what makes up the Lidar. All right, and there's the Lidar reassembled. No harm, no foul. Rick. And on the underside of the cover, next to the Lidar assembly, see that little microphone down there? Not going to bother removing that. If we needed access to that, we could remove like these 4 screws right there. That should allow this assembly to come off. And then it looks like it's just kind of pressure fit in there, like it's got like a rubber gasket around it. So it should just be able to pull off. So that pretty much does it for this upper part. And just quickly taking a look at it here before we go into more detail, we can see that this is the main board right there. There's this upper little daughter board that has the buttons. So that just has these 2 screws there holding it in place. And once those screws are removed, this can just be pulled like straight up like that. There's a small connector on the back that interfaces with the main board. And this little piece of cover plastic right here, looks like they provided some holes on these 2 corners to be able to like attach it to the main board there, or where the screws are. And so that would prevent this from coming out. On this side here, it looks like they didn't do that great of a job. So it's just kind of like floating there. This one is attached, so it doesn't come off on that side. So once those two screws would be removed, then this piece here would be completely free to come off. So I'm just going to remove the one screw right here that will release the little plastic cover. And that comes off like that. And this plastic kind of smells weird. It actually kind of smells like pee. It's kind of funky. But that's it right there. And that exposes the entirety of the bottom there. We can see we've got all the connectors like around the perimeter of the board. On the bumper, I said that there was a couple LEDs there, so they're held in with 2 screws each. I just removed the ones from here. And let's see, let's flip this over and take a look. Oh, and it's got these little lenses on it. I don't know if that comes off. Oh yeah, it looks like that can't come off. Nope, it appears they glued it in place. So I'm not going to remove that, but I'm pretty sure that's just what that is. It's just going to be LEDs to light up so the camera can see, probably in like dark conditions. And we can see we just got 2 wires running to that. So this is all in series. So we got a positive going into here. Wire comes off of that, goes to the other side. And then from that side, we got the negative or the black coming back out. So pretty simple. And this is the little button like daughter board. It looks like some of these buttons here could have like 2 positions. Like right there, it's got pads so it's like positioned a little bit closer to the center. Or it can be like positioned a little bit like more outwards. And then we see we've got LEDs right there to light up the like the actual like physical little buttons up top. So not a whole lot going on in there. On the bottom side, so we've got some maybe little transistors right there. Got a bunch of resistors. So I'm gonna guess that those transistors are probably for driving the LEDs, and then we've got like some like maybe a little like just a little current limiting resistors for those LEDs. There's the connector. Got some conformal coating, and yep, that's it for that. Down on this side of the board, we see we've got another large IC right here. That's another GD32F303, which was the same chip that we saw inside of the base station. And it's extremely hard to see like any numbers or anything on it because of all the conformal coating, but I had to like really like look up and close in there, and that's how I was able to see the numbers. I believe that this chip right here is probably what's doing a lot of the like control functions and stuff like that. You can see we got a lot of traces kind of like going off into like different places. I think where the main processor for this thing is going to be is underneath this metal can right there. You can see that we've got like some matched impedance like traces going off right there. This connector right here is for the camera. And we got the little Wi-Fi module right there. And just connectors like all over the place. There's another IC right here in the middle. That's probably going to be like a power supervisor or something. It looks like it's got some inductors around it, so it's like producing various like output voltages for like CPU core and stuff like that. And thankfully, it doesn't look like any of the connectors that are on this board are like glued down or anything, so it should be fairly easy to remove them all. And we can remove the board, and then we can kind of take a look at some of the other stuff. There's a little button right there. That's what I believe is the reset button. There's a little status LED. Got this little cable here, and that's one of those easily removable cables by pushing on the tab and then just pulling it off. So that just comes off like that. Got another, it's a 2-wire connector going to that little button right there. It has like a little loop right here that looks like it comes off of one contact that goes into the other. No clue what they would have done that. And it does appear that it's possible to remove this can. It's just held in with like some little fingers right here along the perimeter. So I'm just going to gently work this out, and then we can take a look at what's underneath it. There we go. There it is right there. So that's going to be the main processor. Got some RAM. That says MR813. Oh, and on the bottom side right here, we got a little thermal pad. So it's using this can as a heatsink. So when I put this back on, I just got to make sure that it's feels like it's making proper contact in there. So we've got a little crystal or oscillator right there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just some other passive stuff. And up here at the top, it says All Winner. So it's in like All Winner SOC. And the RAM right there, it's a Giga device branded. That's the same as that other chip over here. So I guess they had a lot of like custom parts made by that company. I know nothing about that company. And well, we can cover this back up, making sure that it's fully seated so that this pad in there can make good contact. Okay, so I've detached all the connectors around the perimeter of the board. There's a couple down here that I'm not going to be able to get to until I lift this side up. But there's also one little connector right here that's kind of like one of those little cell phone connectors that just lifts up right there for the camera. And it appears that there's another one underneath this little bit of tape. Yeah, so this should also just lift up right there. I don't know why it's got two. Actually, this bottom one here looks like it might be for the camera. This top one right here might be for this other little sensor bar that it has. Not sure exactly what that is. But there's one more screw on this corner. Okay, so with that off, it feels like the board is nice and free. Oh, there is another connector down here. Actually, there's two more connectors down here. And the location of this one here makes it kind of difficult, but I'm making sure that I'm pulling it by the housing, not by the wires. And it's almost free now. Should be able to come off. There it goes. No other cables on that side. So I'm just going to flip it over this way, and then I can remove that little connector there. And then we got another similar connector right here on this side as was on the opposite side. And that there's the bottom of the board. Looks like we got some shielding underneath where the CPU and the RAM is. And then down here on the bottom, we've got what's going to be like a flash ROM. So that's where all the firmware's going to be stored. There's the battery connector. Looks like we got some current sense resistors around it right there. And then just some other power stuff. There's a couple of optical sensors right here. Those are for the bumpers right there. So the bumpers are not actual physical switches or micro switches. They're just little optical switches like that. So if this bumps into something, it looks like maybe it'll allow light to flow through right there based on its position. So it looks like when it's not bumped into anything, it's interrupting light through there. And then once it bumps into something and it moves it out of the way, then it allows light to go through. Not much else on here other than a bunch of other tiny little ICs and components. And then on the bottom side of the chassis, now that we've got the motors and everything disconnected, if we remove those 3 screws, this assembly here for that little spinning side brush, we can just pull it out like that. And we can see we got a 2-pin connector right there. So this is just the little gearbox for that. Can't imagine that there's going to be anything too exciting to see in here, but let's take a look and see. I'll try to not break these clips here. They look like they're pretty thin and possibly fragile. So, okay, so that's loose. I'm going to tilt it up like that so I don't have anything spill out. Yep, that's it. Just a little bit of gear reduction. Actually, it's just one gear in between the output and the motor, depending on the motor there. So, not a whole lot to look at in there. And now that we've got the the wheel assemblies disconnected from the main board there, let's go ahead and take one out. Not going to bother taking both of them out because if we look at one, we're going to look at the other. So it's just basically like a mirrored version. I'm just going to support it here so that the spring doesn't try to yank it away. So there we go. Once that's out, then gently lift this out of here like that. See the spring try to pull it away from me, and it comes off of that peg. So that connector comes out along with it, and there's another wire. Oh, I see. So this cable assembly has also the kind of the little limit switch right there, so that when you lift the robot off the ground or whatever, and the wheel goes all the way up, it hits that switch so that the robot knows that it's not making proper contact with the ground. So you see the switch right there. So we can pop this out as well, just like that. Then this cable is just kind of guided through right there. And once that's out, this entire thing can come off. And so it technically, you would be able to detach the cable from there if you needed to replace this assembly. But like I said, it's glued in, so we'd have to break off that glue in order to be able to get that out. And I was just going to leave that intact. But at least now we can kind of see how it's all built right there. There's 1, 2, 3 screws. And then it's got one clip right there. And another one right there. So it looks like if we remove those 3 screws, and actually, no, these clips are independent. So if we just lift these up, oh no, it's these 2 screws and those 2 clips right there hold this little cover on. Okay, there we go. That up, and it's all plastic gearing in there. So you got the main pinion right there for the motor, 1, 2, 3, and then the output drive right there. And the wheel looks like it's just held in with a clip right there in the center. So I'm assuming that if we remove this clip like that, pull that off, the wheel should come off. There it is. So it's just got a couple of cut sides right there. That's going to interface with that gear. And I don't want to flip this over because I don't want it to all fall out. But yeah, we can kind of see inside of there, inside the bore, where it looks like it's got like flat sides. So that's how it prevents the shaft there from like slipping. And it looks like maybe the actual plastic part here is constructed in two pieces because it's got screws holding it together. Not going to bother removing those. I'm assuming that once that's off, it probably releases the actual rubber. That's probably what's like pinched right there in between the two pieces. So that's how you'd replace the wheel, assuming that you can get replacements if it was like totally worn out. And because I don't have the back cover on, like when you try to push this in here like this, it's like trying to push everything up until we get to like the right location there where the gear there can drop into that shaft. And there it goes like that. So now I can push all these back down. There we go. And this here is definitely looking like a stepper motor. So let's remove this cover. That was one of the easiest ones to remove. So there it is right there. Or, okay, maybe it's not a stepper motor. Seems to be like an Outrunner brushless DC motor. So definitely kind of fancy there. And I finally figured out how this assembly here that the roller brush fits into, how that comes out. There is a transparent piece of plastic right here that it appears this motor kind of like leverages off of to raise or lower this entire assembly. And so there's a cable that goes down into the opposite side of the chassis. And that's this right here. So there is some tape covering up this little channel that the cable goes into. If you uncover that, we see right there, there's this wires, and that can come out like that. This screw right here is what holds that transparent piece of plastic in place. So once we remove that, we can go back to the other side and pull this piece of plastic out like this. So you can see what that looks like. And then we can tilt this, and if we like push in on these little arms right there, you can get that one to pop out. On the opposite side, I'm trying to be careful here because there's a little bit more pressure. Actually, I think maybe if we do this side first, there you go, got it to pop out like that. Now let's get this side to come out. There we go. This side's more flexible than this side. So once that's out and this cable is free to move out, this entire assembly can be pulled up. Oh, there's another motor. I forgot. So the wires for this motor have to be taken out. And once that's freed, there we go. That's what that looks like. It's got a metal weight right there. So that looks like a little stepper motor. It's actually a geared stepper motor. So there's a little gear train in there. And then on this side, we've got another, just a regular DC motor. It's got its little gear train right there. And then it's going to have the gear right there that drives the roller brush. So no point in removing any of these. We can see what that does right there. And I just realized that it's even easier that if we like loosen up those cables first and then lift this thing completely out like that, then there's a lot more flexibility in order to be able to like pop out the little arms right there where they hinge. So that's the easier way to get this out. And since that assembly is going to be moving up and down, the wires here are routed in a way where there's a little bit of slack on like the side right there so that it doesn't make like any sharp bends and like eventually like breaks due to the repetitive motion. For the motor right here on this side, it actually goes down. There's some tape down there that it attaches to. And then this side here is routed through, like there's a little cutout right there. There's a little cutout right there. And then the place where it attached to the board was like over here on this side like that. So that way it has some flexibility and it's not going to like internally break some of the wires, or not, at least not easily like break some of the wires inside of the actual like jacket. This wonderful mess of cables right here, this runs over to, well, some of it runs down. A lot of it runs over to this side. There's a little board right there that looks like it's just kind of in between, like interface between this bundle of wires right here and some of the other stuff. It looks like that's where it like splits off and combines. So there we go. There's a bunch of little stuff that connects to this little board. Then it goes off into like one complete little bundle right there off to the main board. And then right here, we've got two different types of sensors. One's the cliff sensor down at the bottom there. We can see that we've got two wires going to each side of it. So one side is going to be the emitter. The other side is going to be the receiver. And then right here, we've got another sensor. We also got like 3 wires going to that one. So this is also another optical sensor. And I think that's for the wall sensing, maybe so like it can detect like how far away it is from a wall, so it's not like rubbing up on it. And then the bumpers actually take care of like if it does bump into something, it alerts it. So the bottom sensor down there has one small little clip right here, looks like. I'm not going to bother removing that. There's really not much to look at. And this one here, it just pulls straight up like that, and it comes right out. So that's it right there. And this is the only one that it has. It does not have one on the opposite side. So it's basically going to be going in this direction like this. Here's a wall, and that's how it's going to keep its distance away from it. Tucked down into this little pocket is a speaker, and it's basically enclosed in a little, like a rubber boot. Looks like, yeah, that comes out like that. This is probably just going to be like a little 8-ohm speaker. Maybe that's like the model number or whatever. So yeah, that's it. I thought that was like a little port, but it's not. It's just a little mount. There's 3 bundles of wires that I have to remove from this little interface board that go off in this direction. There's 3 more that go down in that direction. But I think once I free these up right here, there's looks like 1, 2, 3, and I thought there was a 4th one back there. Screws that hold this is the like the swinging arm. And I think that's going to allow me to remove it. Why is it that every time I count 4, there's always seems to be a 5th one? There's a 5th one down here. So that's going to have to get removed as well. Okay, so I think that should release this. And I just realized that this bundle of wires here does not go that way. It goes down over this way. So it appears that this has to get removed, this little shroud right here. And that's where the big blower is. That's the one that does the sucking from the bottom. So this entire bundle of wires looks like it goes to this little board. Okay, and these wires kind of go here over this little side mount here for this shroud. So it looks like we have to get this off first. Then that way we can disconnect that connector there. Let's see, this one over here is it's part of this top one. But that goes, this has wires that go off into that direction also. So it's like you got to do multiple steps just to get this part out. This set of wires right here, that goes to the 2 charging terminals. But it looks like maybe we can just sort of move stuff here off to the side. All right, I see. So this here can actually come out. It looks like there's just something right here that's encased in heat shrink. So that can be pulled out like that. This feels like it might just be a, what is this? Maybe there's just like a little EMI choke in there or something. Kind of don't want to cut that open because it is heat shrunk. So, well, yeah, that gives us enough room to pull this off to the side. And it looks like we should have enough slack here to pull the rest of these wires off to the side. And nope, there's more cables that run underneath right there. Let's see. Now that there's no more screws on here, though, does this come out? All right, I'm not getting anywhere here. So it looks like multiple things have to come off over here before we have access to the blower. Looks like maybe this motor assembly here has to come off as well. So I've loosened up this entire bundle of wires and trying to... this vent right here looks like that'll pull up if we just remove all these wires from above it. There we go. I should have enough slack there. And it's coming up, but it's being... stop. Well, there it goes. So there we go. We've got a couple little water lines down there, and this is just a duct. That's all it is. This is the emptying duct, so that's what goes out into the base station vacuum. And there's 1, 2, 3 screws that look like they're holding this motor assembly in place. So let's take those off and see if we have access to the blower. Oh, and some of the screws in this area are different. These short ones right here go to the swinging assembly, There's some longer ones here that go into the like the fan, this cover up here. And also I removed, well, these little tiny, there was 2 little tiny ones that held this board onto this part of the assembly right there. So those are pretty obvious. The one that I just removed right here from this motor assembly appears to be the same length as the one for the other motor assembly. So those look like they're all going to be the same. Yeah, so all these motor assembly ones, they're all the same length. I did notice that there's another screw down in there, like all the way down at the bottom. So that makes it 6 so far for this thing. I don't know if that's going to be it. We'll find out. But now that the 3 of here, or the 3 of these here are out, this is moving. There we go. So that comes out. Okay, so this bundle here also goes to, oh jeez, there's just stuff everywhere. So these go to this connector. From that connector, they go over to the other motor assembly. Gonna have to make sure that all this cabling gets tucked in where it's supposed to go. I can't tell what exactly this little board here is doing yet. These 2 right here are probably going to be another optical sensor, because we see we've got one right there. We got another one right here, and it's arranged in like a straight line. So that probably indicates whether this thing's like all the way up or if it's been like deployed. The green and the white wire, that's just for the motor, and it's just a regular DC motor. All right, so I try to untangle this as much as possible. This connector that goes to the main board has the green and the white, and then this brown and this kind of a charcoal gray wire. And I think those are for driving the, well, both of those are for driving the motors on both of these, the little mop motor assemblies. And looks like I can probably run this underneath here like this. I left this board attached. All right, and I've loosened up the screw that was down there. Let's see if this will come out now. Well, it's certainly loose. Looks like that might give me enough of a gap there to kind of like push the wires in from underneath. Or push them out from underneath. So I got that one out right there. And then just the 2 for the motor. This should hopefully be free. It's... oh, now this thing decides to come loose. So there's that. What's something in there? That looks like a Hall effect sensor. Oh, there may be a magnet on the dustbin. Yeah, and it's not actually on the dustbin itself. It's in there. You can see it. It's actually on the filter. So if the filter's not installed in the dustbin, then it'll know that there's a problem. You can see right there. So, yep, that corresponds with that sensor in there. So when this is, when you close the, or install the dustbin and pop it into the robot right there, you can see where that magnet being right here lines up with where that sensor is, like right up there. Clever. And this is quickly turning into a mess of wiring. So here's the Roboswing motor. This stuff is all finally free. And we'll take a better look at it here in a minute, because all of this looks extremely complicated. So we'll set that aside. And there is the turbo. Okay, the blower. And that has 4 wires going to it that plugs in straight into the main board. And it's got a small little like a foam filter right here on the outlet. It's got another silicone ducting right here. And there we go right there. So this entire silicone kind of it's like a sock that fits around the entire blower. So you can see that we can kind of like peel it off like that. This connector here is like completely glued into that connector right there. So there we go. That comes off like that. And that's it right there. And a little brushless DC motor right there. It's like that's the control board for it and everything. It has a silicone gasket right here on the side. That's what interfaces with this shroud like that to make a good seal. And after loosening up these clips that are around it, that's what the impeller looks like. If you're kind of curious about that. So that just goes ring, ring. There's a little clip right here that if I remove that, I think I should be able to remove this board here. Not that there's a ton of stuff on the other side, I think, to look at, but let's see. I've already removed 2 of the screws right there. There's one more screw right here holding this in place. And now that, yeah, that's letting me pull this up. I did not want to like try to pull off the impeller right here because that's like pressure fit onto the shaft of the the rotor. So there we go. And the back bearing just fell out. I'm going to try to pop that back in. There's the back bearing. There's another bearing up in the top side right there. And then there's just kind of like a little wavy washer in the middle between the two. And it's pretty wide. So I'm just going to make sure that that stays in there like that. There we go. That's a stator. Looks like we've got a little control chip right there. And then these three, if it would stay focused. So we've got like, it looks like 3 MOSFETs. So there's one down there, and one right here. I don't see like any Hall effect sensors or anything. So this is probably a sensorless, brushless motor. And then just an electrolytic right there. And that's the magnet right there on the impeller. Not much to look at. And I'm not going to try to pull that off for any reason. So I've got this all reassembled, and I didn't notice this when I was taking it apart, but I noticed it after the fact that there is a little bit of like rubber on this sock that fits entirely over the blower right there. That makes it so that there's a little bit of a gap in here where this little cutout is. And so that seems like it would work as a sort of like little venturi, so that as air is like rushing over this way, a little bit of air gets pulled in from underneath right there. And I'm going to guess maybe that's for kind of like cooling this area a little bit, because that is going to get kind of warm with the drivers right there on the fan. So they're using the exhaust from the blower there to kind of pull a little bit of air through there and maintain at least a little bit of airflow like in that area. Yeah, that totally looks like a snail. All right, let's take a look at these now. So this little board that I left attached, it was mounted on the backside of the vac or the robot. So it's got like 2 infrared detectors right here, it looks like, and then it's got one that probably is a transmitter right there. So I think this is for communicating with the base station when it's docking. It doesn't really seem like it would have some other function that I mean, unless I don't know about it, but that's what it looks like this might be. So I just didn't disconnect it because it has this little tiny connector right there, and it wasn't really necessary to move it out of the way. So let's remove this little board here and see what this is. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be another Hall effect sensor. Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah, and it says HA1 right there, so that's just the Hall effect sensor. So there's going to be a magnet in there somewhere. So up here, that's just going to be another little gearbox. There's 3 small screws that attach this piece right here to the rest of the gearbox. So it looks like if we remove those, we can probably see how this thing here like extends and retracts. And judging by the fact that there's only 1 motor on here, I'm going to guess that when this is rotating, there might be something here like maybe some little splines or something that hold this in place so that it can like push it out. And then when it retracts, when it goes in the opposite direction, then it's able to, kind of like pull it back in. And I've got to remove the Hall effect sensor again because it's in the way. Okay, so this sleeve right here is coming off. Can't really see anything right there, but yep, sure enough, this is an optical sensor. So there's a, gonna be hard to see here, but I don't know how visible it's gonna be, but there's a little tiny hole like on one side, and there's another little tiny hole on the other side. So basically light is just going from one of these two over to the other side. And when this thing is like all the way retracted, it blocks the light. And when it's deployed, then it allows light to go through. And that's how it knows if it's like stowed away or deployed. And without that entire cover in place here, we can see how this will rotate out like that. And right there, it's stopped. So that's going to be the gears right there engaging with it. And then when it rotates the other way, it's going to go like in that direction like that. So it's going to put the mop head away. And inside of this outer sleeve, it just has some felt right here that's lining the very end of it right there. So that's going to provide some friction. And it's also going to prevent like dust from getting inside of here. So hopefully that'll prevent it from getting like all gummed up or whatever. And since this is a very simple mechanism with no like drive electronics going directly to the motor, as long as it's not plugged in on the other end, we can apply some power to it and we can see how it works. So if we apply a negative to the green wire right there, and we apply a positive to the opposite side, we can see that it just rotates in there like internally and it doesn't come out. And if we reverse the polarity, and we put negative on the white one and we put positive on the green one, then it pops out and it rotates in that direction. So if the mop head was like installed right there, that's how that would go. And I'm only running this with 6 volts. It's again going backwards. There it goes like that. So that just made me think of something. I think that the way that maybe this thing leaves the mop heads at the station is that it retracts this thing like all the way in, and then it's just enough room right there for the magnet to kind of like decouple from that like the metal hub inside of there. And then once it kind of puts it out just a little bit, then it's able to like magnetically couple again, because it's not like a very strong magnet right there, or at least like the force on it is not like crazy strong. So as long as it's, you know, like around on the floor and it's engaged in there, it's enough to keep it in place. But when it's cleaning, it's obviously going to be putting like pressure like against the surface, and then, you know, the weight of the robot is going to keep it in place so it can't like pop out or anything. And on the opposite side, on the swinging arm one, this entire assembly here is almost pretty much like the same thing. You can see it looks pretty similar. It's a little different, but not that much. And this just has an extra motor right there, and that drives the mechanism that makes this entire arm like swing out. And one thing I just noticed is that it's kind of like spring loaded. So even though the arm is able to like push it out, if like, I guess this contacts something, it's able to, you know, kind of get like pushed in like that. So it doesn't like maybe break the gearing in there. So that's just like another little extra like layer of safety there, just so it doesn't get damaged. And the motor there that does the driving, it's a really tiny motor, but there's going to be like a lot of gear reduction. And we can look inside of there and we can see that it's got some pretty large teeth. So the pinion coming out of that little gearbox on the end of this motor is going to have like a pretty large teeth as well. There is an optical sensor right here. That one there is not a Hall effect sensor. And we can tell that it's optical because, there we go. I think I got some lighting there. We can see down there, it's got one of those where it's got like the emitter and then the receiver on one end. So there's a little tab right here that when it looks like it's fully swung out, that's when it'll interrupt the sensor right there. And when it's like stowed all the way in like that, it's clear of it. I don't know what's under this cover. Oh, looks like that's just part of the mount right there. I don't think I'm going to bother taking this apart, because it's just basically, it's got a little hinge mechanism right there. So that's where it kind of pivots around. There's a little cover right here that I think we can remove, and we can actually see that pinion on the end of the small motor's gearbox. So, yep, there it is right there. And it looks like the main reason why that's covered there is one, it's to, you know, just kind of protect the gears in there. And also because there's little screws right there that hold the little gear case on the end of the motor to the rest of this casing. And so when they install it, they would need to have some way to get to those screws. It's getting scary, people, with the amount of stuff that I have to remember how to put back in here, because it's not like I have a service manual or anything like that. But there's not too much left. Sure enough, as I mentioned in the base station part of the teardown, there's a little tiny pump right here, and that interfaces with this little port. So that's where water gets taken in. There's this other plate right here where the contacts for charging are, and that port is. I'm not going to bother removing this. There's really not much on it, but we can see we've got a little blue tube that comes out, goes down underneath there, into here, and into the pump. So that's going to be the inlet. And then this pink piece of tubing right here, this is going to be the outlet. It goes down over here and up and into this little tiny reservoir tank right here. And then from that, we've got one outlet right here. And it looks like maybe that's kind of like an overflow, because it's like all the way up here at the very top. This is sealed. It kind of looks like this has a cover right there, but it's not. It's all completely one sealed unit. And then down there at the bottom, we can see it right there. It's really like on this side over here, there's a little outlet port. So that little blue piece of tubing goes out, goes underneath this, goes into this little tiny pump right here. And that's actually a 3.3 volt little pump. It says it right there on the side. I'm not going to bother pulling it out, because then that would require me having to like disconnect all these lines and everything. But it looks like if this screw right here were to be removed, then it could be like slid up It's just kind of like laying against this little piece of foam tape right there. Oh, and that screw there is actually doing double duty. It's also holding this tank in place. It has a kind of like a little bit of a tab there that goes underneath the flange of that screw. So once this pump intakes water, it comes out through that pink piece of tubing, goes out underneath there, around into this little piece of tubing, and then up here it comes to a T, and one end or one side goes over off into here and through a little nozzle right there, and that's what ejects out onto the mop heads. You can see it right there. And then there's another little port right here, and that's where the other side of that T goes out. You can see it goes out underneath of down there, around and into that nozzle. I'm honestly kind of fascinated by the tiny size of that pump right there. So tiny. Okay, let's take it out. Okay, and without detaching anything, looks like I can just kind of like move this little tank here out of the way. And let's see if I can lift up the pump. Okay, I'm having to use this tool and like sticking it in down here and grabbing it from the bottom and like gently pulling up. There's a lot of pressure on it from that foam tape right there on the side, so it's slowly sliding up. This pink piece of tubing right there is going to hinder it a little bit, though. Let's see if I can free it up just enough for it to come out. There it is right there. Look how tiny that thing is. It says right there, mini pump, and that looks like it's going to be the model number for it right there. All right, I think I got my fill of a cute tiny little pump. I'm going to go ahead and put it back. We're on the home stretch, people. We've gone basically pretty much like all the way around the robot going in this direction, and we are finally entering the front end over here. That's where the camera assembly is. There's also another weird looking sensor down here or something. I have no idea what it is. And there's two lasers, as I already mentioned. I don't think I'm going to bother removing those. I don't think, or I'm not sure if they're like adjusted in any sort of way. It does not appear so. It looks like they're just clamped down, but they're just like little cylindrical laser assemblies with the outlet on this side. It just has like two wires going to it. I'll show it up a little bit closer here in a sec. But yeah, so not a whole ton of other stuff to look at in here, but let's go ahead and see what we got. And so that there's one of the laser assemblies. As we can see, we just got two wires going to the back of it right there. And it's just kind of clamped in place with this little plastic piece right there. It's got one screw, and it's just kind of pointing out in like this direction. And on the opposite side, we just have the same thing, just mirrored. It's going out in this direction. So I'm not sure exactly what sort of light it's projecting. It may be a line. I don't know if it's maybe a dot. I'm going to guess it might have some sort of pattern that it's projecting. It could also be maybe like a grid, depending on what sort of like lens is in there. I mean, we're not going to be able to tell just right here, but that could be used by the camera to, you know, like map out the room and objects and stuff like that. So that does it for those two lasers. And got another metal weight right there. I thought I was going to be able to remove it by removing those two screws, but it looks like it's still kind of like underneath these two mounts right there. So I got to remove that screw, and I think that's it for this assembly. Let's see. Nope, that did not free it. Let's see if we take off these two other screws, if this assembly will come up. Okay, so that just releases this little hood part here for the camera, and it's also got a like an infrared lens right there. Okay, now this is free to come out. I can just lift it up like that. There we go. Oh, it's got two cameras. So one of these is going to be like the vision camera, because you can, as far as I'm aware, you can see like what the robot is seeing as it's navigating. And then the other one's probably going to be for mapping out the room or like object detection. There's also some wires going down in here. Oh, okay. So there's more infrared sensors right there. So maybe those also work in conjunction with the lasers, and it uses that for navigation and like obstacle avoidance and things like that. And looks like with that out of the way, this weight can come out. So yeah, just a big old chunk of iron. And if you're curious about the weight of this, it's, let's see, almost 13 ounces. All right, down to the last couple of things here. Well, 3 if we count the caster. Down here, there's a little tiny board with an LED. and that's just an indicator to kind of note or signify when the camera's in use in the front. And I had to look in the manual here to see what that was. It says right there, camera indicator. The camera indicator will light up when the camera is activated. And if we take that off and look at it, we can see that it actually says inditer monitor. It does the indictments. And then the little caster right here, it's got this, it's like a little plastic clip. Should be easily removable. Yeah, you just push it off like that. Then it can come out like that. So that's it right there. It just basically has like a little nylon sleeve bearing in there. And then this thing just is free to like move around wherever. So there's no mechanism or anything that's powered that goes to that. So just pop that back in. And other than optical sensors right here, the optical clip sensors, those are going to be identical to the other ones. There's one thing right here that I had no idea what it was. It's a little cylindrical looking device. And I had to look at the manual as well for that one. It's that thing right there, little round thing. That says carpet sensor. No clue how that works. I'm wondering if it's just like a amplified microphone. Maybe when it's the carpet's like, or the robot's like going over carpet, it kind of makes like that whooshing sound. So maybe that microphone there picks it up, and it's that's how it knows that it's running over carpet. Because I can't think of anything that would be like a dedicated carpet sensor. But let's see if I can pop it out. Maybe we can take a look at the other side and see what that looks like. Okay, so it was a bit tricky, but I was able to kind of like push up from underneath while I separated these tabs. And it's sliding up. Try not to pull on those wires too much. There we go. I think I got it all pushed out. So that's it right there. Yeah, kind of tore the tape a little there. Not a big deal. It's got 4 wires going into it. So yeah, not sure exactly what it is. My best guess is some sort of audio device, like a microphone. Okay, so I guess not a microphone, but close enough. I found this on AliExpress. It says right here, ultrasonic carpet recognition. And this is for a Xiaomi robot, but it looks pretty identical. It looks like it's slightly different form, but I mean, it looks like it's going to function the same way. So I'm just going to pop that back into there. All right, people, we did it. I think we got through everything that was on this vacuum robot. And I mean, there was a few things that I didn't remove for like obvious reasons, but I believe we took a look at everything. I don't think I missed anything. So now I've got to try to put this thing back together. I'm taking a break though. I'll see you guys in a bit. So, yeah, it's time to try to put it all back together, and hopefully I remember how it all goes reassembled, and we'll see how long it takes. Let's move this thing out of the way here, and we're going to put this clock up here on the table. It's just after 8:05 p.m. We'll set that down right there. Hopefully I don't knock it down, and I'll just get started, I guess. And time. What do we have? Oh, just under an hour. About 55 minutes then, yeah. Well, it looks good. I used some compressed air to make sure that I could get all the dust out of the camera area before I reassembled it, and it doesn't look like I mean, you're not going to be able to see it there very well, but it doesn't look like there's any dust in there. Hinge is okay. The bumper feels good. So it should be ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Let's bring the base station back over here. Where's the... there's the ramp. Down like that. And here we go. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it. Oh, yeah, you can. Right there. Just barely up on the edge of the video right there. The light's on. Let's see. Those on there. Pop this onto here. Make sure that rolls. These roll. All right. Let's see if it charges. Hey, lights came on. It's flashing, so I'm guessing that means it's charging. All right, well, I heard something. It made a noise. I have no idea what it was. It sounded like a motor. It seems to be charging. I'm just going to let it charge, and after that, I can give it a test run. But that's going to conclude this video. Thankfully, it seems that I was able to put it back together properly, and hopefully there's no problems. And if you stuck around for this very long video, or you watched it in chunks or something, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys around the bench. Oh, man, that was a long one.